Thank you very much. I haven't done anything yet, but welcome everyone to Future World's Demo Day 25. It is brilliant to see you all here. I hope you've had a good chance to get a little bit of food, a little bit of drink, but particularly to see some of the fantastic startups that have been out there in the expo, all startups that have come through Future Worlds over the last few years. But right now, we're ready to see 6 startups pitching on stage. But before talking about those 6 startups, I want to talk through another few numbers first. And the first is 10, because we turned 10 this year. Future Worlds is getting all grown up. 10 years ago, Ruben, John, and Alex, who's still here, squeezed into the back of a tiny little office, and they started to make some waves as they started running events around campus, connecting with students and researchers and people around the university, alumni, mentors, investors, a whole range of different people, as they started out on a journey with the specific intention of creating a Silicon Valley startup culture on the south coast of the UK. And that intent has remained constant ever since. But in those 10 years, the startups the Future Worlds have supported have gone on to raise £110 million. And momentum is on our side because they raised 10 million over the first 5 years, and they've raised 100 million over the second 5 years. And so now, as we look to the next 5 years, we are looking to the next order of magnitude as we go to £1 billion that the startups have raised. Here's to the 3 Comma Club. Thanks, Russ Hanneman. But that momentum comes because of the brilliance of people and the determination of people. And there are 400 people today that are full-time employed in those startups launched through Future Worlds. 400 people who have joined teams going on an adventure to change the world. And of course, all of those are lag metrics. They're the things that happen after what we have done. But it all starts with the thousands of students and researchers that we have engaged down through the years and continue to engage in Southampton and beyond, sharing stories, giving tools and advice, but primarily encouraging people that they can believe that it is possible to start where they are in a university somewhere sleepy in the UK and go on a journey launching a startup that can change the world. And the invitation that we make, if you are a student or a researcher in a university, is simple. Be different, make a difference. And if you want to make a difference, one of the best ways that you can do that is to launch a startup that goes on to scale. One of the first people to do that is here in this room this evening, 10 years ago, as he cut up pieces of hosepipe to explain how his fully parallel turbo decoder could radically improve the speed of data transfer in systems. And today he's been talking about the $15 million funding raise that they've recently closed. He'll be talking about the partnership with Lockheed Martin to be the first 5G base station on an orbiting satellite that has ever been created. As the scale of impact increases down through the years, what started small goes on to have great reach. There's lots of talk at the moment about, with the movement of AI and vibe coding, that we're soon going to see the single person unicorn. But the reality is, startups, great startups, are about great teams. And right at the start of Rob's journey was Shirin, the founder turned investor, who was able to share her expertise, her wisdom, her grit, her determination to help Rob as he transitioned from being an academic to then a successful startup founder. The input, the wisdom, the insight, the knowledge of people in the network can make all of the difference to those founders at the beginning of their journey. And this evening, the 6 startups that are pitching are standing in the same place that Rob stood 10 years ago. And the question is, could you be someone who could make an enormous difference to their journey? Because it all starts with brilliant people trying to make a difference. Now, it is a hackneyed phrase, a hackneyed metaphor, but if you throw a stone into water, it may only make a small splash, but the ripples, the disturbance from those ripples can span out far wider than the original splash. And in a room full of engineers, which often we find ourselves in as future worlds, the engineers would know that the speed of those ripples is determined by two things, by gravity and by surface tension. And when those waves are small, surface tension dominates. And so we in the university are doing all we can to help and support and enable startups to get out of the university, to flourish, to break through the barriers, the tension that may inhibit them. But as waves grow in size, as they scale, gravity becomes more dominant. And for each of the startups pitching today, as they go on to scale and reach that is far beyond their size today, they need all of the fuel that they can gain from investors in this room, the wider investor community, to keep ensuring that they rise and achieve the potential that they have. As an aside, in Southampton, ISVR, the Institute for Sound and Vibration Research, was set up more than 60 years ago to study the impact of ripples, of vibrations on aircraft frames, and how those ripples, those vibrations can have catastrophic effects with fatigue over time. And they continue that work today in air, in land and sea, but also using those same skills to put in cochlear implants that then, for children born deaf, gives them the gift of hearing for the first time. Ripples can have an enormous impact. And the ancient Greeks, they discovered the same thing, that a sound wave, if it is put in an environment where there is a similar frequency, then the environment can amplify that wave rather than diminish it. And so with incredible precision of geometry and materials could build huge theatres that a single voice with the resonant frequency could fill the entire open air auditorium. And that is the wonderful thing about ripples, is that they can start small, but in the right environment, they can go on to have an outsized impact. Perhaps you this evening could be part of the answer to these ripples, these startups that are just getting started in creating an environment that will amplify rather than diminish. And another hackneyed metaphor is that of the butterfly in chaos theory, that says that the flap of a butterfly's wing could cause a hurricane on the far side of the planet. And never more so than today has the global scene seemed chaotic, as geopolitics rage from every corner that can make us feel like there's nothing we can do that could make a difference. Even today, with Rachel Reeves announcing the government spending review, it is in that context of chaos and misunderstanding on so many different levels. And yet, the truth is, bad things happen when good people sit back and do nothing. Never more than today do we need the brilliance, the determination of bold visionaries who can see how what they have can make a difference if only they can bring it to market and can scale. And never more so than today do we need the courage of investors who are willing to back them from the very beginning. And so I ask for you today is, will you be one of those people who will stand up with courage to back these brilliant founders as they pitch today? And on that note, I'm going to hand over for the first time to the brains in the whole operation, our head of tech acceleration, who has been responsible for not only pulling together this event with the whole team behind her, but also bringing these startups to pitch to us today. So please welcome to the stage with a huge round of applause, Dr. Alice Isles.
Thank you for that. Very nice welcome. So it really is such a pleasure and a genuine honor to be here today to introduce you to this year's absolutely fantastic founders with really world-changing startups. And I think it's a little bit of an understatement to say that they have all been on quite the journey. Through workshops, events, we help them to develop their idea, to think about their market fit, and the potential that their idea might have. But really, with a trip to Silicon Valley, this is all about changing their mindset, helping them see their ambition, thinking bigger and flying much higher. You're going to see 6 outstanding pitches, if I do say so myself, today. And I'm hoping that will spark lots of questions that you're going to want to ask. So can I ask you all now to take your phones out, I know, very unusual, and to scan the QR code that you see on the screen. It's also on the walls, and you can find it through your badge, a QR code on your badge, so that you can ask the founders questions about their pitches today, because we'll have no hands up in the room. I give you a little minute. You will see it again, so fear not. The other form that you're going to have access to today is the Connect form. And so I'm hoping that these pitches are just the start. They're going to spark your interest, and you're absolutely going to want to follow up with these founders to find out more. So scan the Connect form, fill out your details, and we'll be able to connect you with the founders to hopefully have those follow-up conversations in the future. But one more time, ask form, get it ready now so it's fresh in your browser so you can get your questions input before I introduce you to the first founder. So for those of you that were here in 2023, you will absolutely remember this incredible founder. I would like to welcome to the stage, Till Jordan.
Hi everyone, I'm Till and I'm the co-founder and CTO at Bloctopus. 2 years ago, I stood almost exactly here, giving my pitch after completing the Future Worlds cohort. At the end, someone from the audience asked me, what if blockchain and Web3 is not the next big thing? What if it's not the technology that's going to transform our digital world? My answer was that the question is not if we're going to get mainstream adoption of blockchain, but the question is when. And back then I quoted some numbers, so I thought today would be a great time to look at those numbers again. 2 years ago, stablecoin transaction volume was at $10 trillion. That's already 3 times the GDP of the whole UK. But now fast forward to the last 12 months, this transaction volume is now at $35 trillion. Larger than the GDP of any country, and more than card networks like Visa or MasterCard. This was possible because of huge advancements in the underlying blockchain technology. But paradoxically, the whole ecosystem has become extremely fragmented and complex. Now, developers have to juggle with many different blockchains, oracles, wallets, DeFi protocols, indexes, cross-chain protocols. So if you're already lost, you're definitely not alone, because only 1% of all developers are active in Web3, mainly because of this overwhelming complexity. At Bloctopus, we have developed a technology that can spin up any of this infrastructure within just a few minutes. Let's take a company like Zonix, a Silicon Valley-based tokenization company. They take a real-world asset like real estate or private equity shares, and they convert it into digital tokens. These tokens need to be stored somewhere, so they provide their clients with digital wallets. But rather than those tokens just sitting in the wallet, they offer their clients access to decentralized finance, being able to lend, borrow, and trade those tokens. And finally, they make sure that these tokens are available across different blockchains. That's what we call interoperability. Without Bloctopus, each one of these steps is extremely complex and requires a lot of development resources. But with Bloctopus, Zonix can create an environment that has all of these components ready to go so they can develop across blockchains within minutes. We're already working with some of the biggest names in the industry. The largest blockchain itself, the largest blockchain infrastructure company, and many tokenization companies. In the last 2 weeks, more than 500 environments were created on our platform, and more than 50,000 transactions were sent within those networks. We have generated $50,000 in revenue, but our main focus is becoming the infrastructure layer for the whole industry. And we do that by following an open source approach and working with these major players. I'm very fortunate to have an amazing team by my side. My co-founder Anisha has years of experience working with fintechs and in decentralized finance. And our developers have previously worked at IBM, Google, and leading blockchain companies. I'm a computer science graduate from the University of Southampton, and I've been in the blockchain industry for the last 4 years. I've spoken at the largest blockchain conferences in Europe and the US, and I've also been mentoring blockchain startups at the University of Oxford. At the beginning of this year, we closed our $1 million seed round. Within 1 week, we had 80% of our round committed. We're now preparing for our round later this year, so come and speak to me today before we officially open. Thank you.
So don't forget to scan the code and get your questions in for Till. I'm sure we've had a few coming in already. Okay, so Till, could you maybe tell us about what some of your competitors are doing and why you are better than them?
For sure. So we have mainly 2 competitors. One is quite a big company, a Series B company, and one is at a similar stage as us. The main difference is really our underlying architecture, because we have developed an architecture that is extremely modular and scalable. So we support already 15 different blockchains, whereas our competitors, they can only focus on one type of blockchain. And then the difference is also, as you saw from this big slide, where we support all of the blockchain infrastructure, whereas our competitors can only do blockchains itself.
So Deborah is very interested in your fund and would like to know how you're going to use it.
The funds?
Yeah.
So we already hired a really good team. So we're a team of 5 people now, and we've accelerated massively. So even in the last month only, we've already implemented support for 9 different blockchains, which was possible because of this amazing team. Going forward, we're going to continue to support more of this infrastructure and working with our clients to help them develop on blockchains.
So on the topic of money, GoPower would like to know, what is your revenue model?
Yeah, so as I said, we follow an open source approach. So a lot of the underlying technology is open source. But then on top, we have a cloud-based platform where we charge usage-based, but also as a subscription fee. And especially we work with enterprises and large institutions who need this solution to work on blockchains and have all of these different blockchains supported.
So mysteriously, we have an anonymous question asker. Don't want to be named, but what is the IP in your company?
Yeah, I mean, the IP that we developed comes from after I graduated. We've been kind of developing this very closely with these large blockchain foundations, for example, the Ethereum Foundation, which is the largest blockchain out there. And it's really, not to go into too much detail, but the unique thing is an orchestration layer that allows us to combine all of these components. Blockchain is a very complicated technology, very complex, because it's a decentralized system. So we've come up with this orchestration layer that allows us to spin up this infrastructure in a very reproducible and modular way.
So with all of that in mind, what's your go-to-market strategy? Because Ben is interested.
Yeah. So I think really core of our go-to-market strategy is working directly with these different blockchain foundations and blockchain teams, because they are built around a massive ecosystem. Their main focus is building an ecosystem of people building on top of their blockchain. So by us working directly with them, we can reach all of the developers, if that's even small teams, but also large institutions that work on those blockchains. And then we're also working with some of the teams that you saw on the slides who are middlemen towards large institutions that we can reach directly through them while we are still a relatively small company.
So obviously there are big competitors and you are, as you just said, a smaller company. So how difficult would it be for competitors to replicate your technology, and how will you be able to remain competitive in the market?
Yeah, I think nowadays, right, in terms of, especially in software, right, if you think about product development, anyone can really build almost any product with AI, right? Like it doesn't take a lot of work now to replicate, for example, even what we have built. The big difference is by us working with these major players, because we are partnered with the Ethereum Foundation, with a lot of other big blockchains and other teams that are in this space. That's not something that you can easily replicate. And that's what we've seen. Even a company that is already at Series B, they don't have these partnerships. They don't work with these blockchains. So eventually they are going to lose, because the product that they have built, we're already ahead of them because we're able to use AI and develop very quickly.
So yeah, with that development very quick. So Henry would like to know, what's the size and potential revenue of your business in 5 years' time?
That's always a hard part to answer. Yeah, I'm happy to kind of speak about this afterwards in terms of projections. Our main focus right now is really supporting all of this different infrastructure, and then reaching kind of the financial institutions. But when we look at these numbers that I showed on the slides, right, like 10 trillion to now $35 trillion in transaction volume of stablecoins, even if we get just like a small percentage of that, the revenue can be very large.
That's all we have time for, so thank you very much, Till. Big round of applause for Till. Don't forget to use the Connect form to connect with Till. You'll be able to speak to him at the expo, but also follow up with him and give him your details for later. So without further ado, I would like to welcome to the stage our next startup, Jamie Horsnell and Samuel Aaron.
MyTender.io is agentic AI that thinks, writes, and strategizes for RFP, tender, and bid responses, restructuring organizations' bid processes to win more work and waste less time. Bidding is an archaic problem. In fact, the first formal tender process can be dated as far back as 2800 BC, where a formal bid was submitted via clay tablet to the government at that time. Tragically, since its inception, bid writing has seen practically zero innovation and remains one of the most painful processes for organizations in the 21st century. Statistically speaking, 1 in 4 businesses rely on bidding for work. So who knows, some of us in this room may even have been scarred by tenders. But for those of you who haven't, I'd like to deepen your perspective on just how soul-destroying this process can be through the eyes of one of our customers. Suez Waste Management have 30 full-time bid writers, producing over 500 bids per year. This costs them 60,000 human hours and over 3 million in annual expenditure. So, in the dawn of AI, how can we fix this age-old problem?
Well, MyTender.io takes businesses' old bidding content and uses AI to turn that into highly compelling, bespoke, and accurate responses that are aligned with the tender specification. We spent over 10,000 hours tuning our AI to incorporate professional bid writing best practices and industry knowledge to ensure the highest quality responses possible, so that for businesses like Suez, we can deliver on up to 75% time reduction, 50% reduction in costs creating these bids, and a 15% quality increase in the bid scores, which in a competitive public sector environment where bids are often determined by a couple of points, this can be the difference between winning or losing a multi-million-pound contract. In terms of traction, in the last 15 months, we've acquired 26 customers, are generating an annual recurring revenue of £200,000, and have just closed our pre-seed round by Fuel Ventures, making myself and Sam the largest investment in current undergraduate students at the University of Southampton.
We generate revenue through a seat-based subscription model that is super scalable and super profitable. We will continue our rapid commercialization through active and successful sales channels, comprising of inbound leads, organic SEO, direct sales, and reseller partnerships, including one with the largest tender portal in the UK, BidStats, with a potential return of over 150 million annually. The market is enormous. On a global scale, across all sectors, there are 100 million businesses writing bids, of which we could generate 2.4 trillion in annual revenue. However, we at MyTender.io are laser focused on the UK's built environment, including facility management and construction firms, where we can generate 1.2 billion in annual revenue. And once we've conquered this market, within 2 years, we will expand to the global built environment where we can generate a further £390 billion in annual revenue.
In terms of team, both myself and Sam have either worked at or started several AI businesses and consultancies, and as well as our co-founder Nicholas, who has led tech teams at some of the largest banks in the world. We also have a team of advisors comprised of serial entrepreneurs, industry experts, and bidding professionals. We will be hitting 1 million in annual recurring revenue within the next 12 months, where we will launch our seed round. And we are looking for investors to speak to investors this evening who have experience in scaling SaaS businesses to help join my Tender.io in becoming the business to end the burden of bid writing. Thank you.
Okay, so don't forget to get your questions in. I've already got quite a lot here, so we'll get cracked. So Susie would like to know, how will your product manage to keep ahead as more bids are written by AI?
That's a great question. AI is obviously moving at an extremely quick pace. We look to stay ahead of it by ensuring that we're tuning our models and incorporating that IP from the bid side so that the responses are far greater than anything that you can generate essentially with ChatGPT, even as a bid writer with a lot of experience.
Okay, so maybe like a little bit of a follow-on question from that. So Jake from Southeast Angels would like to know, so to what extent can this mainstream AI model solve this problem? And like once they've digested your company data?
So, I mean, bid writing is, it is a very complex task to do, and getting AI to do that to as the high quality as a bid writer of 10 or so years is extremely difficult. However, we feel by specializing our models into the specific sector of construction and facility management, as well as really focusing all of our tools into and focusing on the vertical of bid writing, we can ensure a super high quality responses that delivers the results of the 75% reduction in time so that they can use that additional time to create much better responses and focus on more value-added areas of the bidding process, such as the strategy.
Yeah, so Donna would like to know, obviously you're doing all this improvement in efficiency, but has the win rate also improved?
Yeah, so we have multiple cases from our 50 latest users where we are improving win rates by 15%. And I recently checked in with a customer that's recently joined. They've run 5 bids through the system. They've had 2 of them recently back, of which we've helped them win £550,000 in tender contracts.
Okay. So Simon would like to know, obviously in some companies there's a bit of an anti-AI mood in businesses where auto-generated content can be detected by things like Grammarly or, reviewers. So how do you deal with that?
I think AI is something which is going to be, it's already so prominent in all businesses. I think eventually businesses will start to open up on their AI policies a little bit. We ensure by ensuring an extremely secure platform when we use their data, referencing everything that we generate with content that is in their content library, as well as sourcing everything that is potentially generated by AI. That ensures a lot of reliability and explainability for our customers to help build trust within our product and deliver really good results.
Yeah, and I'd add that there is some businesses do have that anti-AI mindset where they're sort of slow to adopt AI technology. But I mean, linking to Ben's point at the start about the sort of government schemes that they're running and the ambition for the future of the United Kingdom, and this is mirrored across the globe, is significant investments in AI technology, not just on an economic level, but on a societal level as well. So I believe that this shift is going to happen. It's inevitable, and there will be AI will be mass adopted, and businesses will be forced to change their mindset if they do kind of continue that mindset.
So we've got another Simon, and actually that links really nicely to what you were just saying, Sam. So he's asking, when can it be applied to other countries outside the UK?
Yeah, well, we want to focus on the UK right now because we can provide that specific knowledge. We can match the complexity of the specific UK tenders within our industries and produce super high quality bids, which is what ultimately we're aiming to do. It's not just about the efficiency, it is about the quality that we can produce. Within 2 years, we expect to expand to other English-speaking countries, which is our service addressable market, such as the US, such as Australia, where we can expand even further.
So Surendra makes a really interesting point that tenders are generally really long documents and LLMs have a tendency to hallucinate over long context. So how are you tackling this?
Well, I think firstly, the current, not to get too technical, but we have a variety of different AI techniques like retrieval augmented generation. The context window is also very large now, so that they can essentially look at the whole tender documents in 99% of cases. But essentially, our system ensures that we're looking and pulling the most accurate parts from that tender and then feeding that into the final responses, once again, to ensure time saving and quality when writing.
So we have time for one last question from Nitish, who's saying, who are your competitors and what prevents large businesses from developing bespoke agentic AI solutions suited to their unique needs?
We do have a handful of competitors. However, they are focused on a broad scale across generative writing, across marketing material, sales material, and even within bid writing, they're focused across different sectors, across different regions, mainly in the US. There is no business focused on one specific sector in one specific region, which means we can provide incredible value to that sector and be the best at what we're doing. And was there a second part to that question?
Well, about them developing their own bespoke
Yeah, so
solutions.
in terms of businesses developing in-house solutions, I mean, it's not natively what they do. It's not their service range. We've spoke with many businesses and the complexities required to build a sophisticated, high quality bid writing system is just going to take away from businesses' core service in whatever they're delivering. Construction sites, for example, they don't want to be spending their time building AI bid writing systems. We step in, we do the heavy lifting, and they can rely on us in a secure manner to automate their bid writing.
Thank you very much, Sam and Jamie. Big round of applause. So don't forget to use the connect form coming on screen now to connect with them. Obviously, you again see them at the expo later. So for our next founders, I'd like to introduce Mo Ahmed and Shimon Dvorsky.
Hi, my name is Shimon.
And I'm Mo.
We are co-founders of Eos Space Technology. We are revolutionizing space by making compact and scalable satellite propulsion. Space is like a congested highway. And over the next 5 years, up to 5 times as many satellites will be launched into orbit. This is only making congestion worse, which is why up to 90% of small satellites currently have propulsion systems. However, current technology is not designed for such a rapid growth in demand. We have spoken to a variety of potential customers and experts in large satellite operators, and they've told us one thing: they're struggling with slow manufacturing times leading to delays in the deployment of key assets, struggling with expensive and large and unwieldy systems not fitting well into their satellites, and struggling with short lifetimes limiting the revenues of their satellites. The question is, what is the solution to this problem?
At Eos, we have developed a compact system derived from research conducted at the universities of Surrey and Southampton. Take a 14 satellite constellation that generates 70 million a year. Over 5 years, that is 350 million. With Eos, satellite operators will be able to increase their revenue to 175 million. Our technology is additively manufactured, 3D printed. It's erosion-free, getting our customers quicker to orbit, increasing their return on investment. We occupied a unique category in the propulsion landscape, giving our customers, satellite operators, more mobility over time, more revenue per satellite, and ultimately giving them more value per unit. Our go-to-market strategy will focus on B2B hardware sales, targeting small satellites in the private, defense, and scientific sectors. The total electric propulsion market by 2030 is expected to be $26 billion. Small satellites make up 30% of that. Eos aims to deliver, by 2030, 360 annual orders, generating 193 million in revenue. The technology is derived based on 4 years of R&D at the universities. We've recently secured 2 letters of support onto satellite operators and have formed a consortium with market leaders to get our technology ready for orbit. But now the main question is how and who will deliver this?
Our team is comprised of experts in the propulsion field, having recently graduated with PhDs from the University of Southampton and Surrey. This gives us a unique insight into current state-of-the-art propulsion technology. Not only that, we have a broad experience working in commercial space sector projects in both R&D and product development with various private sector companies and space organizations. Our advisory board is comprised of experts in various fields, including space startups, mission design, finance, and propulsion. Together, we are not just developing a single technology, but we are developing our business. We are looking for space tech and defense tech investors to join us in our ambitious journey. We require £3 million of equity funding in order to go to market, of which we currently require 500,000 in order to do crucial system development so that we can do first system functional tests in 2026. At which point we will require a further £2.5 million in order to go to market in 2028. We are also going to be enhancing this ask with various R&D funding from the UKSA and ESA. Join us to redefine space, not just for us, not just for satellite operators, but for all of humankind. Thank you.
Going for the drama. So again, don't forget to get your phones out, scan the QR code to ask Eos Space some questions, but I've already had a few in. So Simon would like to know, you said large satellites at the start, and then we were talking about small satellites. So is this scalable across all formats?
Ultimately, at the start, our beachhead market are small satellites that in the long term, we want to scale our technology for larger power ranges to target larger satellites. So yes, it is scalable.
Amazing. And Francesca would like to know, so what makes your propulsion system different from existing technologies that are on the market?
So the technology that we've derived has a novel architecture. So it's different in terms of the design. So therefore it can be manufactured quicker and it performs at the same level as what's currently available on the market. If you want to see the prototype that we have tested, it's on the Expo booth. So we can talk about it even further.
Jake would like to know, so how are you going to get your first customer?
We are looking for our first customer through strategic partnerships, which is typically the way which first customers in space are acquired. We have spoken with a full few potential partners, however, they're waiting for our system to be slightly mature in order to go for first sales.
Henry would like to know, so how do you actually certify that this product is for space use? Oh, and actually a few people have asked that, Sam asked that as well. So how would you get it ready?
So ultimately, the only space certification that is required is whatever the launch provider requires. So that's thermal and vibrational testing. However, we will also be looking at something called the ECSS standards, which make sure our system is as reliable as possible.
So Chris would like to know, obviously we're not in space right now, so how are you proving your technology in its operating environment?
So the technology is tested in a vacuum chamber. So you pump down, you create space-like environment, and you test the technology there. We actually tested it at Surrey and Southampton, and there's videos of the thruster operating in the booth, so you can come and see it.
In the future, we will also be testing it in a vacuum thermal environment. So we'll be varying the temperature and also looking at the vibrations in order to simulate that launch environment as well.
Amazing. So Elaine would like to know, where do you see your company in 5 years' time? Who are you exiting to and when?
Ultimately, in 5 years, we're looking to transform not just for a subsystem provider, but into a space logistics company, meaning we'll be deploying satellite systems in order to keep all the satellites in orbit moving. However, that's just the beginning for us. Ultimately, we want to develop the deep space logistics infrastructure that humanity will use to go further than ever before. There will be exit opportunities along the way, but ultimately our ambition is to lead the next leap in space.
Amazing. So Deborah's asking a question. What is your pre-money valuation?
We're currently looking at a pre-money valuation of £8 million.
Excellent. And Mike would like to know, so actually on the topic of money, what is your business model?
So our business model will offer two options: one-off hardware sales or bundle solutions. So we support with integration and operation. So because most of the small satellite players are new companies or new startups. So what we will be offering them alongside the propulsion system is helping them operate and do the transfers they need to move their satellite in orbit.
We've got time for just one more question. So Ben would like to know, how long will it take you to get to market and how much funding do you need to get there?
So as has been discussed, we require around 3 years. So 2028 is when we're looking for going to market. This is when we're going to do an in-orbit demonstration. In terms of funding, with a safety margin, 3 million is what we require to do the key R&D and also launch our product in space.
Thank you very much. Don't forget to connect and absolutely go and see the propulsion system at their expo after this today. So I would like to welcome our next set of founders to the stage, Zize New and Jinder New.
Hi, we're Droplet Scientific. We are developing continuous biomarker monitoring devices to improve patient care in hospitals. Biomarkers are vital early warning signals indicating a patient's condition. In hospitals, measurements are commonplace and are done via manual blood draws and analysis. But this is far too time-consuming and infrequent. Take sepsis, for example. Sepsis is a condition that affects 49 million people globally, leading to 11 million deaths each year. For sepsis patients, lactate levels are the crucial biomarker signals that confirms diagnosis and is used to guide treatments. Typically, these measurements are taken every 2 to 6 hours. But during that time, a patient's condition can decline rapidly. For a patient with septic shock, every hour of delay in treatment results in a 35% increase in mortality risk. So when a patient is waiting hours for their next blood draw, it's not just a delay. It could mean the difference between life and death. That's where Droplet Scientific comes in. We offer continuous biomarker monitoring devices that can measure every 20 seconds. This allows clinicians to detect complications much earlier and to act faster, which can reduce mortality rates and shorten ICU stays. Our devices are also fully autonomous, saving valuable clinicians' time and hospital resources. We have a patented microfluidic platform technology that delivers laboratory-grade testing in a compact and autonomous format, perfect for critical care situations. Compared to existing competitor technologies, we are the only solution that can deliver on both continuous monitoring as well as providing clinically accurate data.
So the technology is built upon years of research and supported by world-leading clinicians and industrial partners. So I'm still the inventor and the founder of the company. I'm also a serial entrepreneur. My previous company was backed by angels and VCs with the product selling on the market for water and environmental monitoring using the similar microfluidic technology. So Jinder is the CTO and co-founder. Since it started from last year, we have made rapid progress. Within a few months, we have built and validated working prototypes. We have successfully completed the first paid commercial contract by Johnson & Johnson for preclinical animal trial. And we started the second and bigger contract with them. So today, we are launching our research user-only product to test the wider market and to bring in early revenue. Looking ahead, we plan to raise $5 million equity investment to support team growth, R&D, clinical trial, and regulatory approvals. So this investment will lead to a pipeline of a research use product in 2026 and launching of medical devices in 2028. We plan to gain early market entry through strategic partnership with the leading medtech companies like Johnson & Johnson by integrating our devices into their existing hospital systems. We also plan to roll out the device to hospitals as a standalone solution for sepsis care. If we can only monitor 2% of a global sepsis patient, this will lead to a market of over £1 billion per year.
So if you're interested in helping us to bring continuous biomarker monitoring to hospitals to improve patient care, please come speak to us at our expo stand. Thank you.
So everyone get your phones out, scan the QR code and get your fabulous questions in for Droplet Scientific. So I've got a couple to get going with. James would like to know, how accurate is your device?
Yeah, so during our last animal testing, we've shown comparable accuracy to the current gold standard of lactase analyzing device for over 8 hours. And I'd just like to emphasize the point that even to make that test happen, there was a team of 4 nurses and clinicians doing the current manual blood draw and analysis every 15 minutes just to get the data for that experiment.
Amazing. And Sam is interested to know, what is your business model?
So our device consists of 2 parts. We have a permanent main body and a disposable cartridge to be used per patient. The main body will stay at the patient bedside, but the cartridge will bring us in recurring revenue because it has to be swapped every patient.
And Rich is interested to know, you mentioned a platform technology. So what other biomarkers can you monitor?
Yeah, so without going into too much detail, we have a whole list of biomarkers we can monitor. Just to name a couple, we can do glucose, lactate, pyruvate, pH, and all of these different biomarkers will be relevant for different conditions, which can lead to different markets as well. We'd love to talk to you more about this in detail at our stand.
Yeah, so if you didn't know what all of those were, you can check in after. Anonymous, yes, would like to know, what is the status of your regulatory approvals?
So yeah, I can reply. Because we are launching the research user only product, it does not require like a medical device CE mark or FDA approval. We will do the CE mark self-regulated. So that's the first step. So we plan to then start the medical device regulatory approval process and build up our QMS system within the next 3 years to launch our medical device.
So John would like to know, what are your biggest risks and how are you going to mitigate those?
Yeah, so we've got 3 main risks. So we've got technical, we've got regulatory risk, and we have market adoption. So for the technical risk, the biggest challenge is how do we scale up this technology into the hundreds, tens of thousands, and into millions. But we have a team that's experienced in delivering really complex hardware projects in the scale of millions. For the regulatory risk, we are consulting with regulatory experts and consultants very early on in our process to make sure there are no time delays. Additionally, our device uses an off-the-shelf component. So our device sits outside of the patient body. The off-the-shelf component sits inside, and most of the regulatory burden is on that off-the-shelf probe. And in terms of market adoption, we are working very closely with strategic partnerships to be able to
use them to help to bring our device out onto the market. Additionally, we are launching our research use only products to gauge market interest at the moment.
So Chris would like to know, in terms of your IP, how will you retain your lead in the market over these sort of long gestation periods?
Well, IP, so our patent platform technology has been granted globally, covering the major markets, US, China, EU, and the UK, etc. Yeah, we plan to build up a portfolio of patents around this key platform patent. And additionally, I want to mention we have a very strong know-hows and trade secret built up over the years of development.
So in terms of thinking about that moving overseas, Simon would like to know, are there any regulatory issues if you're expanding outside to overseas market?
No, I don't think we have a regulatory issue. As I said, we are going to apply FDA approval by working with the industrial partner like Johnson & Johnson. They are a global company, and the CE mark as well.
So Jake wanted to know, I think you sort of touched on this earlier, Jinder, like, have you qualified the added value? So what is the expected decrease in mortality?
So this is something, so we've done health economics and estimations of this, but this is something that we will need to quantify in our further clinical trial.
So we've had a few people actually asking questions, and Phoebe and Elijah are asking about sort of other use cases with maybe other markers. So could you potentially talk to another use case that I know you're looking into other than sepsis?
Yeah, so even just for lactates, there are many use cases. So for example, one use case is major surgeries and resuscitation events. Lactate is a critical biomarker just to detect if there's enough oxygen flow in the body or not. So using our lactate monitoring device to guide treatments after major surgeries.
Maybe I had like not too far from here. Like I started my research in Imperial College, like working with the King's College Hospital. That's for brain traumatic brain injury. So our monitoring device definitely can help to monitor those patients and to spot like complications earlier, and for clinicians to act faster.
Phoebe would like to know, is there a risk that you could be overtaken by non-invasive wearable technologies?
Yes, potentially, but at the moment, looking at the current state of the art, the non-invasive wearable technologies cannot offer the same accuracy that we are offering right now.
And last question for you today, Chris would like to know, what is your exit plan?
So, well, I think the most likely exit plan will be strategic acquisition by leading medtech companies. So we are working towards that. But the key point for us is to build up a great product and to show strong market need, clear market, and have a protected IP. And we are working very hard on this.
Thank you very much, Jinder and DJ. So don't forget to connect with the founders, and obviously go to their expo stand later and find out what all of those biomarkers were that they said earlier. So I'd like to introduce your next founder to you now. Welcome to the stage, Alexander Todorov.
At SilaTech, we have a novel device that improves the lives of the elderly, and we're using it to monitor their health and prevent falls. Imagine a scenario. One late evening, Mr. Smith loses his balance and falls. He's in a care home, but the staff are busy and no one notices. So he lies on the floor, cold, scared, and in pain for hours. All this because he wasn't wearing his fall alarm. It sounds familiar, and to me it was, because it actually happened with my own grandfather. He fell over, and it was a miracle that he got up and called for help because he wasn't wearing the Apple Watch we bought him.
half of the elderly who spend longer than 1 hour lying on the floor will die within 6 months. It's a horrifying statistic, and care homes in the UK lose over £2 billion annually because of falls. They're trying various ways to combat this, but they're still on average spending 30% of their time and over £150,000 dealing with the aftermath, and are suffering damage to their reputation and ratings. All this because current technologies like wearables, cameras, and floor mats are limited, intrusive, and restrictive. To address this, we made a device that can automatically detect a fall and send an alert. And it does so by being completely passive and private. There are no compliance issues, unlike wearables and cameras. It is more than 99% accurate. It saves valuable care time and allows for 25 times faster response to falls. This cuts down costs, minimizes hospital admissions, and boosts care homes' reputation and occupancy. But to truly solve the problem, we don't just need to better respond to falls, but to actually prevent them. And our device has the capability to do that. We use an AI model to analyze the elderly's movement, identifying the risk of a fall, and then alerting care staff to take preventive measures. This is a game changer, because if we had this technology monitoring my granddad, we would have been able to spot the signs and prevent the fall. Care homes see the value in this. We have written and verbal interest from several care home groups in trialing it. That is why our business model is a B2B subscription to these homes. We have two channels, direct or through integration with large digital care platforms like Nourish and PCS, which can give us access to more than thousands of customers. With this strategy, we can get to 1 million of annual recurring revenue from onboarding just 35 care homes, which actually I can probably get just from warm introductions within this audience. But the market is much bigger. There are more than 17,000 care homes in the UK, resulting in a potential annual revenue of more than 500 million. We plan to scale to the US and EU, bringing us to a TAM of more than 2.5 billion. And yet, there still are 20 times more elderly living outside of care homes, a huge additional market for our device. We have the team, expertise, and manufacturing partners to make this a reality. We've done it before with SilaTech, and we will launch this. We have a 4-stage plan to capture the market. We'll finalize the development by the end of the year, and then begin trials early next year. We plan to be profitable by Q3 2026, and then scale and roll out to neighboring markets. We're asking for £250,000. This will give us 18 months of runway during launch, trials, and early scale. We have the device on display at our stand, and I use it to keep my grandfather safe. But if you want me to keep everyone safe, then I need to move fast. So join us in redefining elderly care, starting in care homes and eventually in every home.
We've already got a few questions coming in, but again, don't forget to scan the QR code and get your questions in for Alex. So Alex, Jake would like to know, what technology are you using for this, and who else is taking this approach?
We're using radar waves. Right now, this is a completely emerging technology, and there are very few companies that are just emerging in the market using something similar.
Amazing. And Henry would like to know, what's actually the false alarm rate, so which potentially increases the healthcare worker workload?
So for detection, we actually, till this point, we haven't gotten a false positive. I think, is that a question?
Yes, like when you're told that someone's falling and they're not actually.
Yeah, so we actually haven't gotten a false positive or a false negative. So that's really impressive.
That's very impressive.
More than 99% accurate.
So Paul would like to know, how are you going to get through MHRA for trials?
It's a very good question. And fortunately, we don't have to pass through medical device regulation, because our device, we're not going to use it in a clinical environment, no in a clinical setting, nor is it going to be used to diagnose the elderly for some condition. So we avoid medical device regulation altogether.
And we have an anonymous, potentially investor, would like to know, what are you looking for in an investor?
Ultimately, someone with experience with deep tech and hard tech startups that's has already gone through the field and knows what their expectations for hardware startups are. If they also have connections to care homes, then that's an added benefit.
Mike would like to know, do you need a unit in each room in a home?
Yes, so it's 1 unit per room.
Okay, great. And Sam, so maybe Sam's putting his hand in his pocket here, says, have you considered raising more to move even faster?
That's a very good question. Ultimately, we're raising this amount because the trials are going to be a quintessential part where we're going to build up our metrics and build up case studies. So then we can go for a bigger raise and actually scale this to the next level and onboard many more customers.
Richard has an interesting question. So have you considered integrating this into existing hardware, such as smoke alarms or smart devices?
Actually, yes. We've actually had a decent idea from a person in this audience to integrate it into paintings on the wall, which is an interesting approach, and we could potentially explore that. But a smoke detector works as well.
So Paul would like to know what puts this above camera tech that uses models and hides the user?
Privacy. Ultimately, from my experience in talking to care homes, even if the camera system promises to offer some sort of an AI privacy feature, most of the care homes or the occupants in these care homes are still feeling uneasy being with a camera, surveillance camera in their home.
And what size room can it monitor?
Sorry?
What sized room can it monitor?
25 square meters. Fairly standard bedroom.
And Gopal would like to know, like, who and how many people have you tested it with?
Right now, we're still testing it in-house. During the trials, we're gonna build 50 devices that we're gonna test across 10 care homes, and that is for the trials.
And is there a specific age group you're monitoring?
Not necessarily, as in most of the people in the care homes are above 65, so elderly above 65. Although I had an interesting request from a care home that looks for disabled people of all ages, which are also interested in using that. So ultimately, it is age agnostic.
Paul would like to know, are you going to measure vital signs?
So yes, potentially with this technology, we can also measure vital signs. That then will require medical device regulation, class 2A. For the roadmap that we're currently going for, we want to establish ourselves with the fall detection and the fall prediction. And then we can roll out into measuring vital signs and offering a complete remote monitoring solution.
And just got time for one last question for you. So Simon would like to know, where do you see your company in 5 years' time? Who do you exit to and when?
I realistically see this in 5 years to be generating over 5 million in annual revenue and being scaled more than 200 homes. Ultimately, by that time, all the metrics and all the trials that the care homes have been positive because we'll be working closely with the care homes to develop this to their specific needs. So the device will be practically selling itself. In terms of an exit, it's not an option. It's always an option, I would say. It's not the go per se, but we're considering if a strategic acquirer comes into place. So some of the two companies I mentioned, Nourish and PCS, they have a habit of acquiring similar tech startups like us, which deliver them the data that they need for their own models.
Thank you very much, Alexander. So don't forget to connect with Alex, leave your details, also go and see him at the expo later. So now I would like to introduce our final startup of the day and welcome to the stage Smit Mahajan and George Divot.
So we are Brainalyze and we want to transform dementia detection and diagnostics. I'm sure many in this room would know that dementia is a terrible disease and a death sentence. I've seen my own grandmother suffer and wither away from a sharp family matriarch into a skinny corpse of herself. She forgot her names, she forgot her faces, and then she forgot how to eat and to drink. Unfortunately, this is a painfully common occurrence with 55 million people suffering across the globe and 500 million people at risk. But dementia isn't just about forgetfulness. Different forms of dementia can cause hallucinations, personality disorders, and other issues, often co-occurring and leading to a misdiagnosis. Take the case of Robin Williams. For example, despite his celebrity status, it took him 1 whole year to get a misdiagnosis of Parkinson's disease dementia. Only on post-mortem was it revealed that actually he had a different form of dementia. And that is the problem with current diagnostic methods. They take long, are cumbersome, and plainly inadequate. They cannot detect or distinguish between different types of dementia, nor can they detect them early. We at Brainalyze have the solution to fix it with the pioneering new simple blood test that can detect and distinguish all different forms of dementia and early.
Okay, so how does this work? Our optical method is based on unique biochemical fingerprinting, which is patent protected. This test can detect and distinguish multiple forms of dementia with over 90% accuracy. This redefines dementia detection, and not just for Alzheimer's, but also for the 20 million people suffering with other forms of dementia for which there are currently no adequate tests. In terms of competition, here are the companies who are creating blood tests for Alzheimer's. And here are the companies whose tests can detect the full spectrum of dementia. But this isn't just a medical breakthrough, it's an economic one too. Today, thousands of dollars are wasted on multiple inadequate tests. Our charge per test model generates high unit economics with margins up to 95%, providing value to every stakeholder. We are building the first scalable solution to pinpoint dementia early, and that is where the market is headed. Our go-to-market strategy targets the 30,000 diagnostic hubs in the US, addressing a $10 billion near-term opportunity. And if just 5% of symptomatic Americans adopt our test, just 5%, then we project revenues up to $500 million by 2030. But we are thinking bigger. As we continue to grow, we will create home collection kits and pioneer the first worldwide dementia screening tool, uncovering a potential $1 trillion market.
And we have the perfect interdisciplinary team with the passion to deliver this. It's built on 12 years of solid research in our group. And now we have business advisors from both the UK and the US. Our new hires will be across regulatory, marketing, and sales areas. We have traction with 3 clinical studies ongoing, 1,200 patient samples secured across different forms of dementia, and $1.8 million already secured in translational grant funding, and 2 interested lead investors. We are the biggest innovation in dementia technology in the last 30 years. We are where many cancer diagnostic startups were a decade ago, and many of them are now unicorns. And now, in order to bring our technology to market at speed, we are raising $10 million to primarily fund clinical trials and regulatory approvals. We are ready to take off. And therefore, I invite you to join us and let us defeat dementia together.
Again, one last time, get your questions coming in for the founders, but I have a few ready here for you now. So how much earlier on average do you think you can detect dementia than the current methods?
Yeah, so our current published evidence show we can detect certain forms of dementia up to 5 years earlier, but these trials are still ongoing.
And actually that links quite nicely to another question. So Jake's asked, at what point in a patient's journey is this test expected to be done? And actually, obviously, as you move to a screening model, will that potentially change?
Yeah, so our initial go-to-market strategy targets diagnostic hubs. So this would be symptomatic people So this would be at the stage of diagnosis. So it would be a diagnostic aid. And then it would change as we move forward and create these home collection kits. So then we would target people over 50 and risk groups, for example.
So is the world ready for a dementia screening test?
Actually, the demand for this or need for this was yesterday. I mean, the first drug came on which was approved was in 2021. And since then, there are 2 more drugs which have actually been introduced. But there is currently no test, or simple test, which can avoid repeated visits, avoid brain scans, and other forms of tests which people have to go through to actually prescribe the correct drug to the right patient at the right time. So yes, this is absolutely the current need.
So Marianne's asked, like, isn't dementia currently diagnosed some forms after death? So how do you validate your accuracy? So maybe you could tell the audience a little bit about some of the other tests that people currently have for dementia diagnosis.
Yeah, so the current gold standard is CSF, so spinal fluid markers, and brain scans through PET. And this has an accuracy of around 85%. But the tests that we've done to ensure that they're more accurate are from clinicians who have looked after patients for over 2 years, and the samples were collected in the initial stages when they were still unsure. So the diagnostic process was 2 years. We came in and we could get 93% accuracy in 5 minutes.
So Simon's asked a little bit about the cost of the test. So is your expected ballpark test cost in the tens or hundreds per test?
So our current estimates of our costs are about $50 per test. And just to put that in perspective, that current diagnostic spend, as George highlighted, is about $10,000, because each MRI scan, each PET scan, each blood test adds thousands of dollars to the scanning process. And that is also there is inconvenience in repeated patient visits to the clinician time taken.
So Phoebe would like to know, why can't your competitors detect the full spectrum of dementia?
So this is because of our paradigm changing technology, because everybody else requires or follows that traditional approach based on biomarkers, where you detect a specific protein for a specific disease. Until the biomarkers are discovered, you actually cannot detect. We do a radical different technology where we measure everything in the blood sample. We measure all biochemicals, and that gives rise to a fingerprint, and that is specific to a particular disease, and therefore it is disease agnostic actually, and therefore we can detect every different form.
Yeah, so just like to add, I think it's important to say this is a single step test. So like Sumit said, it doesn't require antibodies, it doesn't require complex extraction procedures, and this is what other tests currently require, which is why no competitor can actually beat us on cost.
So Andy's asked, have you considered offering it as a companion diagnostic?
That's an excellent question. We'd love to speak about that, but currently we're focusing on it being an aid to the diagnostic process.
And what approvals or certifications will you need to operate your product?
So we are targeting the first, our launch strategy is to utilize the research use only case, or what is called the LDT route, lab developed test. And for that, we require only what is called lab certification or the MHRA no objection letter. So but that all data will build into both an MHRA full approval as well as an FDA approval.
And Ali's asked a really interesting question. So what else could this platform potentially be used from beyond dementia?
That's an excellent question. So indeed, our technology is a platform technology. We are laser focused on delivering it for dementia, but we have researched other areas like antimicrobial detection, and we have published papers on that. So, but we'd love to talk about that after this at the expo.
And Louise would like to know, what are you looking for in your investors?
That's an excellent question, and I'm thankful to have been asked that. So we are looking for an investor who understands deep tech, who understands medtech industry and the return cycles there. But more crucially, we want somebody who actually shares our ambition and vision. So our vision is to make an impact, and our ambition is to be a unicorn.
So Paul asks or makes a really interesting point. So unlike cancer, dementia testing is sort of like a first step, and often there's not a lot of follow-up with the patient. So how are you going to, factor in the support for people after receiving a diagnosis, especially if it was sort of delivered, by post or in like a screening clinic?
So currently, so in the first instance, the test would be through a doctor, so it would require a physician's note to be able to order the test, and the care burden then would be fully on the care system. But it means that an earlier or a more accurate diagnosis actually means better care planning and intervention can take place. So for example, a 1 year earlier diagnosis can buy somebody 2 years extra independence because of that better care.
Okay. And Ali's asked them, have you talked to any of the dementia VC funds?
It's not on our list, but yes, if you can make some introductions, we'll be very glad to talk to you after this at the expo.
So I've just got one last question for you. What is your exit strategy?
That's an excellent question again. So we are laser focused on achieving our goal, our vision, which is to pioneer the first screening platform for dementia across the world. So we want to build a strong company, but along the way, we'll be working with very large organizations, and therefore opportunities may arise for a remarkable or good exit.
Thank you very much, George and Samit. So don't forget to connect with George and Samit, but also with all the other founders that you've seen today pitching and the ones that you'll see at the expo if you haven't spoken to them already. I'm immensely proud of all of the founders. They are absolutely incredible. But it might not have escaped your notice that unfortunately today there were no women pitching on stage. Diversity in the startup ecosystem is something that we're really passionate about, and it's still a really big problem that we want to change. But I'd like to ask for all of your help with that. We're hosting an event next week, which is a conversation between Jane Sibley, founder of Sibstar, and Vivian Chu to talk about Jane's fundraising journey and the sort of trials and tribulations of that. This is a women's only event. Sorry, guys. But I'd really like to ask all of you to share this with your network, share this with aspiring founders, share this with investors and people that are looking to change the startup ecosystem so we can help support women on their journey to success. Thank you very much, and back to Ben.
Thank you. Firstly, I want to say a huge thank you to Alice for all that Alice has done to bring these startups forward. And coordinating everything today. And to echo what Alice has said, obviously we feel the issue differently, Alice and I, but through Future Worlds' journey, we've always struggled with how do we enable as many people as possible from as many different backgrounds as possible, different demographics, genders, whatever it is that might mean that people don't feel welcome in the startup community that so many of us have benefited so much from, and yet it continues to be a challenge. And so I would echo Alice's call to each of you in the room. What is it that you could do to help us, to help that community to be as diverse as it could be? As Wendy Hall says of AI teams, that if the team that builds the AI is not diverse, then how can it truly be an ethical product that can represent the needs of the wider community? And never more so is that the challenge for us within this community. So please do help us if you can. But moving on, looking ahead, I talked about £1 billion that the startups over the next 5 years will raise, we say with confidence. Part of that comes by expanding what it is we're doing. And there are two exciting things that I want to talk about. First, one that is already in action. And so a new member on the Future Worlds team, Annette, is leading our work in silicon photonics. We have an exciting partnership with the Optoelectronics Research Centre, the Cornerstone team that are building a silicon photonics ecosystem in the UK. And we are part of helping to accelerate great silicon photonics technology into commercial success. And we're very excited that Gopal Ramchand is here, Chief Executive of Responsible AI UK, and we have agreed a partnership with Responsible AI UK to be offering a nationwide AI accelerator that will be launching over the next 2 years to help the latest and the greatest AI technologies from across the university's research base nationally, the 4 nations of the UK, to move from lab into technologies that really can change the world. And we know that silicon photonics and AI are both sectors that are not well represented by women in those sectors. So again, it is so important that we work together as a community to do what we can to broaden the involvement. But as we come to a close, we're going to do something slightly different. So before we finish, before you leave your seats, I'm going to ask the Future Worlds team and all of the founders to very, very quickly, because people are going to be waiting, to come up on stage. We're just going to take a very quick photo of everyone while we're on stage. Just to explain, we've said to the founders, some of them want to take selfies with you in the background. And so if they're taking selfies while I'm finishing, smile for the cameras, everyone. So I just want to say...
I'll see you.
So I want to say a huge thank you to the many partners and sponsors that help us immeasurably through supplying content, running workshops, giving financially generously, giving us space. There's a whole range of different ways in which many people help us and support us. So thank you very much to all of our partners. But lastly, I want to thank again Alice, but thank the whole of the Future Worlds team who do an incredible amount behind the scenes to help these brilliant people to get launched. So thank you to the Future Worlds team, and thank you especially to Fred and to Ian for the incredible just going so far beyond the extra mile as mentors, not only of startup founders, but also of us as a team. And so Fred and Ian have been giving a huge amount of time very generously to help us as we expand what we do as Future Worlds. So that is all from us. Thank you very much indeed. A final reminder, use the Connect form and connect with these startup founders, because you will be amazed at the difference that you can make to the journeys of these startups. But first things you can do is speak to them afterwards. They're all going to be by their stands immediately after we've finished with photos. So we're going to do a few more photos, which gives you first chance at the bar. Go to the bar, drink a lot, eat a lot, and talk to the startups. Thank you very much indeed.